All right, guys, it's Sunday. Not a whole lot going today. Today was a very gloomy day. The sun was not out at all on a Sunday. So, anyway, this video that I have for today, you're going to be watching some of this recycled footage again, but I save it for the purposes of being able to make these voiceover videos when I have a subject or a topic to talk about. A while ago, somebody had asked me if I would do a video on buying and selling farm equipment. For those of you that don't know, I did do that for a little while, and I figured I'd get into that. And this person asked me this, it must have been 3, 4, 5 months ago, and I just remembered about it today, actually. I just remembered that they asked me to do a video on this subject, and I totally forgot about it. So I am getting around to it, so let's get into it here. First of all, a little disclaimer, this isn't going to be a how-to or any advice, really, on how to buy and sell farm machinery. This is more or less just going to be what I did, my experiences with it, why I did it, what I would look for, and kind of just an overall explanation as far as how I used to do things. All right, so we're going back to the great financial crisis in America. At that time in my career, that was in I was at the farm equipment dealership at that time. All right, so I'm working there. Things are really slowing down. It's getting bad. We survived the one winter. Our hours were cut back, and we survived. Going on in the spring, we had the lawn and garden stuff to keep us busy, keep us working, but it just never really recovered. And by the following winter, I was laid off and never called back. So, and not complaining or anything, because it kind of helped me to move on a little bit. But anyway, around that time when I lost my job, it was the worst time to lose my job because I had just gotten married. I got married in October, lost my job in December. At that time, my wife was working part-time and going to college, so she was helping out with some of the stuff here. But anyway, I actually got into buying and selling farm machinery by accident and out of necessity. Before I got married, like I said, I went from a $7 an hour job milking cows to a job as a farm equipment mechanic. Now the pay wasn't wonderful, but it was certainly more than anything I had ever gotten paid in my life. Health benefits and vacation days. I had no idea what it felt like to get paid on a holiday. You'd have a holiday and you'd get paid for it. It was amazing. It was such a new concept for somebody that was working on a dairy farm milking cows. But anyway, to keep this moving, I had bought a lot of equipment at the dealership when I was working there. And if you think about it, being a mechanic there, you kind of get first dibs on anything that comes in. The salesman rolls in and you get to look the stuff over. And I did buy a lot of stuff. I also bought a lot of stuff that I didn't really need, but I thought I might need someday. I was living at the other farm at that time, before I was married, and I didn't really have a lot of bills or a lot of expenses, and it felt like I had a lot of disposable income, so I bought farm equipment. So that went on for years, and I pretty well had all the buildings filled over at the other farm. Every spare space under roof and out, it was spilling outside. That I was going to farm someday, and I just bought everything. And I didn't really focus on one area in particular. I bought forage equipment, I bought hay equipment, I bought stuff for corn, I bought sprayers. I had 4 or 5 sprayers at one time, and I have no idea why I was doing it. Just more or less... I don't know, a young guy with some money to spend and that liked farming. So I had a pretty nice collection. So like I say, lost my job, just got married, and it got tough. I'm not going to lie, the first couple years that I was married, I was broke as can be. And the job market in our area during that financial crisis and recession was absolutely terrible. You could not find anything. I applied to, I don't know, probably 30 jobs, and didn't get any type of response or anything. They just weren't hiring. The work wasn't here. So what do you do in a situation like that? You go on unemployment. I went through that, but that only lasts so long. So the unemployment was running out, and I still had no prospects or anything. Still wasn't really farming at my at the other farm. More or less just being a caretaker. I was living there with my grandmother and my brother at the time. So what I ended up doing and what I ended up having to do was actually start selling some of the equipment. I had a fast hitch, international fast hitch hay rake for like a 200, the small points, and I didn't have a fast hitch tractor. I had my Super C, and I was going to actually convert it from fast hitch to 3-point. But I figured, you know what, I have another rake, I might as well just sell this rake. So I put it on Craigslist. 5 minutes later, I get a phone call, and the guy said he'll be right out. He drove all the way out and bought it just right away. He told me they were rare. I didn't realize that they were rare, but he wanted it. We loaded it on his trailer. He paid in cash, and away he went. So that it felt great. It was I'm not gonna lie, it was a feeling that got very addictive for me. And I thought, you know what, I might as well sell some of this other stuff that I'm never going to use. I'm probably never going to need forage equipment. I had a Gale chopper. I had an International chopper. I had a silo blower, and I didn't even have a silo. Just like I say, it was a disease buying this equipment. So I started advertising it, and the stuff was moving, and I was getting more than I paid for it, which also felt good. So then I started actively looking to buy equipment to sell. Like I said, it was out of necessity. I had bills to pay. I was living in a house that we were renting. I had to pay rent. I had to pay electric. I had to buy heat. All these expenses that you you run into, and no job. So I had my trailer, I had my pickup truck. I was starting to go to auctions. I was buying stuff. I was looking through classified ads. I was buying stuff. I'd bring it back to the farm. I had a shop set up over there. My brother was working at a body shop at the time. He was able to paint a lot of stuff for me. He had all the equipment and stuff, so I would buy the paint. He would paint it, and then I'd give him a cut out of the final sale. But I did all right that I was able to survive. You didn't make a lot of money. You didn't make enough money to really go anywhere, but I made enough money to pay the bills, because you figure till you get something, you have to get it at a decent price, and you have to figure your hauling time to get it home, fix the things that are wrong with it, maybe paint it depending on what it is, and then get it up for sale, and then you go through that whole process and the final price. Now granted, I only lost money on maybe one piece out of the... I still have a list somewhere. I sold almost 200 pieces of equipment in 2 years. Now, granted, they weren't big, expensive, like $30,000 tractors or anything like that, $40,000 tractors. These were more the old, small attachments, 3-point attachments, stuff like a 2-row corn picker that I had, older stuff, New Holland 38 flail chopper, stuff like that, just kind of oddball stuff. And I was surprised that I was able to sell a lot of it. A rock picker. I had a rock picker. I thought it was a good idea. And I'll tell you the story on that rock picker. It was a Schulte. I saw it in a fence line, and I stopped and asked the guy about it, and he said, yeah, I'll sell it. $500, it's yours. And looked all right. It was pretty like rusty from sitting outside. It was all hydraulic drive, and it made me nervous about all the hydraulic valves and remotes and all that kind of stuff. The hoses were all bad. But for $500, I figured I'd give it a try. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know what they were worth. I didn't even know how to use it. I never used one. So $500, I hooked it on the back of my pickup, brought it home, hooked it up to the 544 that I had, and sure enough, everything worked on it. I got lucky there. Everything worked, and it worked great. We had sandblasted it, primed it. We painted it Caterpillar yellow. I wasn't going to buy Schulte paint, that kind of yellowish lime green or whatever it was. Painted it Caterpillar yellow, and put it up for sale. And sure enough, that was probably my highest turnaround. I had no idea what something like that would have been worth, and I did all right on that. So anyway, why I don't do it now, and I probably could, but I just don't want to. I got tired of it. Like I say, I'm selling 100 pieces a year. Just dealing with people. And that's kind of everybody's complaint, just dealing with people. You got your tire kickers that show up and they're not interested. They're just looking it over, and they kind of give you a low offer, and of course you're going to reject it, and they figured you were, and then they leave. And you spend, if somebody is, that was the other thing, is the amount of time that it took to do this, that the time, how time consuming it was. Somebody would call and they would say, hey, I'll be there, I'm interested, I want to look at it, I'll be there at noon. I'm coming, I have about an hour or 2 hour drive, I'll be there at noon. All right, so you have to wait. You can't do anything, you got to drop everything, you got to wait till they show up. And then all of a sudden they come pulling in at 1:30, 2 o'clock, and they had traffic or they had this or that. And then they're there talking with you and just BSing about different stuff. And then they don't buy it anyway in the end, and away they go. And before you know it, 4.5 hours of your day are lost, not making any money. That was one thing. The other type of customer was the guy that would show up and offer you $1,000 or even $2,000-$3,000 less than your asking price, and then tell you that, well, I can get it at an auction, I blah blah blah, and then that type of person that thinks that you're gonna just drop $2,000 because they're there, and of course I never did. So I just got to the point where I was getting frustrated with dealing with the different types of people. It wasn't hard finding equipment. Here in the Northeast, equipment's everywhere. It's all over the place, and there are still deals to be had, but it does take a lot of your time and effort, and sometimes repairing the stuff and getting it in the shape that you can be okay selling it to somebody. I didn't want to sell anything that was going to fly apart after they got it home for the first 5 minutes, and I had my mechanical background, so kind of worked in my favor there. But it just got old, and I started getting a terrible attitude dealing with people. Phone calls, people call you on the phone. You would I would always write out a detailed description. There's nothing that drives me more crazy on Craigslist than when somebody posts something and they're very lazy with their posting, and it's just runs good, and one picture runs good and a price. I tried to write a very detailed description to answer any questions somebody would have. That way the chances of somebody calling you that would waste your time, that aren't interested in, it kind of bypasses a lot of that. You've answered a lot of the questions that people are going to call you to have. And they'd still call and ask the very same questions that you'd have even written on the description. So just got tired of it. Loading was another big issue. I had built a loading dock over at the other farm to load some of this stuff to make it easier. And I only had an 8N Ford with a loader, so I was very limited as to how I could load stuff. I had to borrow the neighbor's 584 with the loader very often. I didn't like doing that, but people would show up with trailers that were nowhere near big enough for what they bought, and expected that you would somehow magically be able to get it on the trailer for them, and that was always tough. Was the loading that it kind of drove me nuts. So I had all the equipment still over there then that I was actively using to farm with. When I left the other farm, I had all this equipment, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to try to do this by myself, selling this private sale. It's going to take too long, and I just had such a bad attitude towards some of the customers that I actually took it all out to my local New Holland dealer, and they sold it for me on consignment, which had them answer the phone, it had them load, it had them deal with the people that weren't interested, the hagglers and the negotiators, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just, I don't think it's something I would want to do again. It just kind of burned me out. I was going too fast. I just got addicted to it and really enjoyed it. And I'm still glad I did it, because I was able to survive my first couple years of marriage and pay all the bills without a job. And I just was happy for that. So, all right, guys, any questions, feel free to comment. Thanks for watching. I will see you tomorrow. It's supposed to be a nice day tomorrow, finally.